Ladies, I am going to be saying some contentious things to you, and your first reaction might be to dismiss it because it is new and somewhat contentious. But I am asking you to chew it over and let it digest before dismissing it or taking it too lightly. The human family is at a very precarious phase right now. Everything around seems to be relentlessly assaulted. The environment, the young, the poor, and our fellow creatures, the animals. Money is the tool that has been used to bring the world to this state. However, there is a factor behind money that we fail to recognise and that is really at the root of the problem. When we look at our culture, at everything about our culture, and about all cultures that we know of through history and that exist today, one common factor stands out. They were all designed by men. Women barely participated and men didn't notice our absence. Even today, men do not notice our absence. They sit on boards filled with men, with a sprinkling of women, but even if no women are present, men seem to have a blindness to that disparity. And women have a blindness to it too. We don't notice that the law of the land, the Constitution, had not even one woman sitting on its drafting. This to me is highly disrespectful of balance and fairness. I hope it is to you too. Women have been told what to do and still are told what to do by men. This gives men a certain disposition towards us, which they internalise as permission to carry out their adventures, regardless of the trauma they inflict upon others that don't find their adventures quite as exciting as they do. We have the situation where it is honourable to be walking in public as a killer soldier than to be breastfeeding one's infant. Monuments are dedicated to warmongers, but rarely to peacemakers or caregivers. Laws are made that prohibit feeding the homeless rather than working out how to house people. Healthcare is available to those who can afford it, and it is delivered in tiers, both based on ability to pay and tiers of families and children going without. We have immigration laws that demean those who seek a better life for their families. We have wars that are started at the drop of a hat without resorting to any of the creative processes to solve conflict. Our children are growing up with debt and mind control, pesticides and pharmaceutical dependencies. Our environment is collapsing more every day. As the men themselves say, it's not rocket science. These problems have been going on for years. Since men make overwhelmingly most of the decisions, they need to get the proper feedback from us that they are doing a lousy job. Everything in our culture has been designed by men. Even the language was decided by men who were the only ones to have had an education before the 20th century. Yes, there were women who flew planes and fought for an education, but these are outliers. I want to stick to the overwhelming majority. There will always be outliers, and we can venerate the courageousness. However, for women, the world over, it has not been good. Though both genders have no restriction on using weapons, it is hard to recall even one instance of women shooting indiscriminately into crowds, as men do. I have never heard of an army consisting solely of women, nor secret societies consisting of women. But even if one or two can be named, that is not the point. I want to stress we are talking of the overwhelming majority of instances, not the outliers. I have arguments about this all the time. Strangely, women rarely engage in argument, but men do, and I thank them. I discovered recently that though we accommodate the men so selflessly, they don't respect us for it. They consider us almost despicable because they see women using underhanded techniques and preying on emotions. They don't respect us for accepting the norms that they have set, as we prepare our boys to fight in the wars that they make and to act like a man. Whichever way we do it, we are going to be blamed, I think. That is why we have to figure out our own way of being. Women have traditionally been used to handling things in a quiet way, or succumbing and trying to work within the systems imposed. Rarely have we taken the steering wheel and drove the ship ourselves. Whenever we have done that, we surprised ourselves and the men. For example, in education, men barred women from accessing information, but when we managed to break through that barrier, we excelled. Why would anyone bar others from gaining an education? What perhaps we ought to realize, and perhaps many already do, is that we are not the same. We are different and we are complementary. Why do we collude with our own debasement? We can see the pattern and the direction we are headed in. We're pretty much at the end. We're at the existential end. We have climate change, Fukushima, 2 major worldwide emergencies, yet we do nothing about both. The 40-hour work week has been around for 50 years, and technology has expanded exponentially in that time. Many do not have work anymore. Many are struggling to provide for their families. The trend looks even grimmer. And others continue the 40-hour work week grind at the expense of their children and their interests. Time is money, according to the male paradigm. It is time we got hold of the wheel. It's well past time that women took charge. Therefore, I have put together a first draft of another document that should show what it is we espouse as women: to heal the world and to give every living being a chance at paradise, because that is the raw material we have been gifted in this world. We must not abuse it. We need to learn new things, like using only that which can be replenished. We cannot keep taking from the trough and taking without due respect. This is respect for nature and for those who traverse the world after our time has passed. I propose that, having lived under a constitution that was solely drafted by males, that we have one drafted solely by females now. What do we want of this world, I ask you? We must put our voices together. Some of the main points of the template I have prepared is that we must no longer be ruled by force. There is a law that precedes all man-made laws, and that is natural law. Just having been born endows everyone with natural law, the right to do and say what one desires. The first thing that comes into some minds is the immediate rush for the defence, but what about the sociopaths? How will we be protected from them? Don't worry, there are provisions for that, and that are probably a lot easier than we think. Binding and jailing them or killing them are not the only alternatives. We need to go a notch beyond barbarity now. The answer, I believe, to sociopathy is an open society, one that has no public secrets. Looking at the society we have, it's no wonder we're in such a mess. We are constantly surveyed as though we are all suspects of some fiendish crime. Sociopaths are usually those who have not had the proper love. In fact, most of our troubles can be attributed to lack of care. We have to change that. And in the Women's Constitution, that is addressed by changing the way we view time. Men have decreed that time is money, but what if your parents are ailing? How can your time be money? Children need mothers and fathers to be present as they develop. How can that time be converted to money? The Women's Council decrees that time is not money. Time is art. Imagine living in a world where we do as our hearts desire. Imagine living to fulfill your desires and help others fulfill theirs. What if that were the basis of an economy rather than greed? We have to change everything we do. Rules are abused so that rather than provide guidance, they are used as a stick to extort money or confine people in cages. We have to change that because we will not survive as a species if we don't. It is my belief that men are not good at decision making. It is pretty evident that they brought us to the juncture on their own without much aid from women, though women have assisted. I mentioned to a woman recently that breastfeeding in public can be subject to a fine in many states, and she looked at me askance and squinted. I wouldn't want to breastfeed in public anyway. Therefore, she satisfied herself with that law. In a world where people are being killed by guns on a regular basis, now even in their own schools and churches, we women have to put our heads together and say stop. We have to give the proper feedback to men, and we have to stop accepting male law. Men may not like that, but we won't be stopping them from doing whatever they wish, because that is at the foundation of the Women's Constitution and non-violent behaviour. But we will say no to them. They cannot drop their bullets in people who don't want to play their game. They can no longer drop their bombs on people who have no choice. They can find their own playground to do what they wish, where it harms no one but those who want to engage in such practices. I hope you will take a look at the Women's Council's Constitution. I hope you will come on board. The Constitution has the ability to move with the times, unlike the laws made by man. It has the space to evolve as we evolve. One thing it will do is turn the course we are on and first elevate humans, all humans, and then restore the planet back to health. Looks like we're having to do the cleaning up again, ladies. Do you think we can do it? Do you think we can figure out a beautiful way of restoring health? Men left that out of their valuations, health, and they also left out enjoyment. So now we have a system so cumbersome that to make any changes takes a mammoth effort, and it has left everyone inspirationless. Let's take everything and give it a good makeover. And let us see what we are capable of now that we have a modicum of latitude. And let us help women the world over. Let us cure the world of poverty and starvation and restore dignity to all beings. This is an exciting journey. We have a plethora of possibilities before us. What do you wish to see? How would you like to help? Men will not be excluded, and we desire their help too. However, ultimately, for the next 5 years, the only restriction is that men cannot vote in our new political online system called Synergy Nation. But all women can, and girls of any age, as long as they can read. I have argued this subject and welcome further argument. I too wish to see the balance of women and men. However, in order for us to go forward, we have to have men who are willing to take a step back in this way for now. As men tend to lead and women tend to defer, we need to find our feet and know the men who we can rely on to support this effort. Men who recognise the condition of the world that we are in and who will be all too happy to assist, as already some have stepped forward in this way. As the Constitution does not represent women, the laws of the land are not applicable to women. Now we must claim our own power, and we need to do some thinking and dreaming as to the kind of world we want. May your days be filled with cheer.